Professor Qulvax's 4 tentacles twitched with irritation as he slithered into the lecture hall, his luminescent skin flickering between shades of purple and blue, a clear sign of exasperation to anyone familiar with Cephalodian body language. The amphitheater-style classroom at the Galactic Central University of Xenobiology gradually fell silent as students of 17 different species settled into their variously shaped accommodations. Today, Professor Qulvax announced, his voice translator automatically adjusting to the optimal frequency for each species present, but we will cover the most terrifying sentient species in the known universe. A wave of excited murmurs rippled through the room. The Voltar twins in the front row buzzed their wing cases in anticipation, while a cluster of gelatinous collective beings in the back corner merged briefly into a single excited mass. "Professor," called out Zorn 7, a mechanical life form from the Andromeda Quadrant, more terrifying than the Kronos Void Hunters. "That seems highly improbable based on statistical analysis. More dangerous than the silicon-based magma dwellers of Vesuvius Prime?" chirped Trilly, her bioluminescent antennae glowing skeptically. Professor Qulvax's skin darkened to a deep indigo as he deployed his visual teaching appendage, activating the holographic display that dominated the center of the room. "Students, I understand your doubts. As graduates of the most prestigious xenobiology program in the Central Galactic Cluster, you've studied over 10,000 sentient species. You've analyzed the plasma sharks of Betelgeuse, dissected the hive mind of the Proxima Centauri spore collectives, and even in particularly brave cases observed mating rituals of the Venusian acid beasts." He paused dramatically, all 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "But nothing, and I mean nothing, will prepare you for the species we're discussing today." From the middle section of the classroom, a translucent Aquarian student raised a fluid appendage. "Professor, the Galactic Council lists 287 Class 5 dangerous species. Which one tops the list?" "None of them," Professor Qulvax replied, "because the species I'm referring to isn't classified as dangerous at all by the Galactic Council. In fact, they're categorized as emerging intelligent life, non-threat category. The most hilarious misclassification in the history of galactic bureaucracy." The classroom erupted in confused chatter. A floating gas cyan being near the ceiling vents expanded in surprise, nearly triggering the room's compression alarms. Settle down," the professor continued, manipulating the holographic controls with practiced ease. "Let me introduce you to the newest members of the galactic community, though members is a stretch, as they've only achieved rudimentary interplanetary travel and have no idea we exist." The hologram shifted to display a small, unassuming blue-green planet. "This unremarkable world sits in the unfashionable western spiral arm of the Milky Way. The locals call it Earth, which literally just means dirt in their dominant language. Original, right?" A few students chuckled, while others dutifully took notes on their quantum tablets. "But it's not the planet we're concerned with. It's these." The hologram zoomed in to show bipedal beings of various colors, shapes, and sizes. "They call themselves humans. And they are, by every measure we have, the most terrifying sentient beings in the known universe." The room fell silent, all eyes now fixed on the ordinary-looking creatures in the hologram. None of the students noticed how the professor's skin had shifted to the deepest black possible on the Cephalodian spectrum, the color of absolute certainty mixed with profound red. "Class, prepare yourselves." Professor Qulvax's voice dropped to a grave tone. "Today's lecture will change how you see the universe forever." The hologram rotated slowly, displaying Earth from various angles as Professor Qulvax began his lecture proper. "At first glance, nothing about this planet suggests exceptional life forms. Nitrogen, oxygen, atmosphere, liquid water, carbon-based biology, all standard stuff. One unremarkable yellow star, a modest planetary system. Even the geological activity is middle of the road, in cosmic terms. Earth is the equivalent of suburban housing." Several students nodded, relaxing slightly. The humans themselves appear equally unimpressive. No natural weapons to speak of, no claws, venom sacs, or bioelectric discharge capabilities. Their sensory range is laughably limited. They can't see infrared or ultraviolet wavelengths, can't sense magnetic fields. And their hearing range is pathetically narrow. Their epidermis tears easily, offering virtually no protection. They lack redundant organs. Their reproduction is inefficient. Even their lifespans are brief, less than a single galactic standard century. The hologram shifted to show various human activities: walking, eating, working. So what makes them special? Why did I call them the most terrifying species in the universe? Professor Qulvax's first revelation appeared on screen: a human extremity sporting several scars and calluses. This, students, is where the horror begins. Humans don't just repair damage, they come back stronger. Their muscular tissue adapts to stress by becoming more powerful. Their skin thickens in response to friction. Their bones heal denser after breaks. Every injury they survive potentially makes them more dangerous. A crystalline entity in the third row refracted light in a pattern indicating confusion. Professor, many species exhibit adaptive healing. The Tartarian sandworms regenerate entire body segments. Yes, but sandworms don't remember what cut them in half and then design tools specifically to hunt down whatever did it, retorted Qulvax. This is where humans diverge from normal species. When they encounter a problem, they don't just adapt biologically, they create external solutions. The hologram shifted to show humans using various tools and technology. Too slow? They build vehicles. Too weak? They create machines. Can't fly? They construct aircraft. Cold? They don't evolve fur, they just take it from other animals. Or make artificial fur. Or change their entire environment to eliminate the cold. Zorn 7's mechanical voice interjected. This is simply tool use. Many species. Not like this, Professor Qulvax interrupted, his tentacles gesticulating wildly. When most species develop tools, there's a plateau. They reach an equilibrium with their environment. Humans? They never stop. They're pathologically discontent. The professor manipulated the controls, showing a rapid time-lapse of human technological development. From stone tools to nuclear fission in less than 10,000 years. From first powered flight to landing on their moon in 66 years. 66. Some of you have fungal growths older than that. A collective gasp went through the classroom. But adaptability alone doesn't make them apex predators, continued the professor, his skin now pulsing with excited patterns. It's their inexplicable combination of traits. For instance, humans are pursuit predators. The hologram displayed humans running. They're not particularly fast, but they possess freakish endurance. In their primitive state, humans would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They don't outfight their targets, they simply refuse to stop following them. Some Earth creatures can sprint faster. But nothing can outlast a determined human over distance. Professor Qulvax leaned toward the class, lowering his voice. Imagine that. You run until your body fails, you hide and rest, thinking you're safe, and then you look back and the human is still there, still coming, barely even winded. A methane breather near the exit vents began to hyperventilate, its breathing apparatus working overtime. Yes, nodded the professor. Now you're beginning to understand. Professor Qulvax's holographic display shifted again, this time showing a series of images that appeared to be human historical records. Let me share some case studies that the Galactic Observation Corps has compiled. These examples may seem anecdotal, but the pattern they reveal is irrefutable. The first image showed humans traversing a vast ice sheet. Galactic Standard Year 7291, Earth Local Calendar circa 1912. A human expedition decided to reach the most inhospitable continent on their planet, Antarctica, simply because it was difficult. Their ship became trapped in ice. Their leader, a human called Shackleton, led his entire crew across shifting ice floes, survived for months in primitive shelters, then navigated an open vessel across one of Earth's most dangerous oceans to find help. Not one crew member was lost. The hologram shifted to show desert landscapes. Or consider the Polynesian seafarers who navigated thousands of kilometers of open ocean in primitive vessels, using only stars for guidance. Or the nomadic peoples who made the Arabian deserts their home, adapting to an environment that should have been lethal. A hive mind student raised 7 appendages simultaneously. Professor, many species display remarkable survival capabilities. True, conceded Qulvax. But here's the crucial difference: most species evolved to survive in harsh environments over thousands of generations. Humans just decide to go there, with inadequate preparation, and then somehow survive anyway. The professor's skin rippled with an emotion that didn't translate well to any other species present. Several galactic research missions have failed spectacularly when attempting to understand humans. The Relentless behavioral study of 2211 tried to observe human problem-solving by creating an enclosed ecosystem with deliberate resource scarcity. Within 3 days, the humans had not only solved the intended challenges but had also discovered 4 monitoring devices, repurposed the materials to enhance their shelters, and were actively working on breaching the enclosure. Chuckles spread through the classroom. The Arcturians tried a different approach. They created perfectly hospitable environments to observe humans in comfort. The subjects became suspicious of the lack of challenges and systematically began testing the parameters of their environment, eventually creating problems just to solve them. The hologram showed humans engaged in various extreme sports and dangerous activities. This brings me to another terrifying trait: humans deliberately seek out danger. They climb mountains with minimal equipment because they're there. They jump out of perfectly functional aircraft. They deliberately expose themselves to danger for recreation. A photosynthetic being from the Betelgeuse system waved its light-collecting fronds. Professor, this behavior seems counterproductive to survival. Exactly, exclaimed Qulvax, his tentacles contracting with excitement. By any rational evolutionary standard, it makes no sense. But for humans, these seemingly irrational behaviors serve as preparation. They intentionally stress their capabilities in controlled environments, which makes them more adaptable in actual crises. The professor's voice became more subdued. I've had my own encounter with humans. Early in my career, I was part of a covert observation team on Earth. Our cloaking technology malfunctioned near a remote human outpost in a region they call Alaska. Rather than flee from the unknown object crashing near their settlement, the humans organized a search party. They found me injured, and, despite having no conception of extraterrestrial life, proceeded to provide medical assistance adapted on the spot for my obviously non-human physiology. The classroom was now completely silent, every student riveted. They kept me alive for 7 standard days until my retrieval team arrived, improvising solutions for my biological needs based on nothing but observation and trial and error. No specialized knowledge, no advanced technology, just human ingenuity. Professor Qulvax's skin had settled into a deep purple of respect tinged with fear. In that, students, is why they terrify me. Not because they're inherently aggressive, though they can be, but because there seems to be no problem they cannot eventually solve, no condition they cannot adapt to, and no setback that stops them permanently. The holographic display shifted once more, now showing humans in various states of conflict from primitive battles to modern warfare. Now we come to the truly unsettling part, Professor Qulvax continued, his voice translator dropping to a lower register. Humans don't just survive, they're remarkably efficient at ensuring other things don't. Several students shifted uncomfortably. Unlike most sentient species who evolved beyond their violent tendencies, humans have simply redirected theirs. They've turned their predatory instincts into complex systems: economics, politics, competitive sports. Even their leisure activities often simulate conflict or hunting. The hologram zoomed in on a chess match. This is a human game called chess, essentially a simplified war simulation that millions play for enjoyment. They spend their recreational time solving complex strategic problems for fun. The image shifted to show various human scientific achievements. When confronted with a seemingly insurmountable problem, humans exhibit a unique response we've termed creative frustration. Most species, upon reaching their cognitive limits, simply accept those boundaries. Humans get angry at reality for not conforming to their desires and then force reality to change. Qulvax gestured to the hologram, which now displayed the construction of massive structures: the Great Wall, the pyramids, modern skyscrapers. Their determination borders on pathological. Human history is littered with examples of leaders declaring something impossible, only for other humans to immediately prove them wrong, seemingly out of spite. The classroom had grown increasingly tense. A hive mind student in the back began to segregate into its component entities, a sign of extreme stress. "Professor," asked Trilly, her antennae quivering, "if humans are as formidable as you suggest, why hasn't the Galactic Council reclassified them?" "Politics," snorted Qulvax. "The Council's xenopsychologists refuse to believe that a species could advance so quickly without self-destructing. They're convinced humans will wipe themselves out before achieving true interstellar capability." His skin darkened ominously. "But I've analyzed the data. The very crises predicted to destroy humanity, resource depletion, climate shifts, nuclear proliferation, have instead spurred radical innovation. Each existential threat has accelerated their development." The hologram showed early human space exploration efforts. "Let me tell you about my most disturbing observation. 20 Earth years ago, humans detected an automated mining probe in their outer solar system. The probe was malfunctioning and emitting radiation on frequencies humans could detect. According to predictive models, the discovery of alien technology should have caused social upheaval on Earth." Professor Qulvax's tentacles trembled slightly. Instead, they reverse-engineered partial principles from the limited scan data they collected. Last month, they launched their first antimatter-catalyzed fusion drive, a technology that took the galactic community 300 years to perfect. They roughed out in 2 decades from a broken probe they observed from a distance. The classroom erupted in disbelief. "That's impossible," shouted Zorn 7, its mechanical appendages clattering against its desk. "No species can advance that rapidly." "Evidently," replied Qulvax dryly, "no species except humans." The professor manipulated the holographic controls one final time, displaying a star chart with a small but significant section highlighted in red. "This is the territory humans will likely colonize within the next century if their development continues at current rates. Notice how it overlaps with 3 existing territorial species. The humans will make contact with the galactic community not as supplicants, but as equals, possibly even as threats." As the implications of this statement sank in, the classroom descended into chaos. Professor Qulvax raised all 4 tentacles, his skin flashing bright yellow to command attention. The classroom gradually quieted. "I understand your alarm, but panic is premature. This lecture isn't meant to frighten you, not only to frighten you but to prepare you. Humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage is inevitable, and we must be ready." A crystalline student raised a faceted appendage. "Why not contain them? The galactic quarantine protocols have been discussed and rejected," interrupted Qulvax. "First, containment has never been successfully implemented for a species already achieving space travel. Second, and more importantly, consider what I've told you about human nature. What happens when humans encounter obstacles?" "They overcome them," answered Trilly reluctantly. "Precisely. A quarantine wouldn't contain them, it would challenge them. We'd essentially be creating a puzzle for the most pathologically problem-solving species in the galaxy." The professor's skin shifted to a calmer blue tone. "Besides, humanity has much to offer the galactic community. Their adaptability, creativity, and persistence could help solve problems that have stymied other species for millennia." A Gassian being condensed slightly to speak. "What protocols should we follow if we encounter humans?" "An excellent question," replied Qulvax. "The Bureau of Xenocultural Relations has compiled preliminary guidelines. Most importantly, never underestimate them. Their appearance of technological inferiority is temporary and deceptive." The hologram displayed a list of recommendations. "Second, understand that humans form emotional bonds quickly, even with non-humans. Their capacity for empathy is possibly their most unpredictable trait. They've been observed mourning the destruction of primitive mechanical devices they've anthropomorphized. A Voltar twin buzzed quietly. That's psychologically unsound. Perhaps, conceded the professor, but it's also why the Alderanian refugee crisis was resolved so quickly once humans became involved. A species that can feel empathy for machines can certainly connect with any sentient life form, no matter how different. Professor Qulvax's skin took on a reflective quality, indicating contemplation. Third, never assume you understand their limits. Humans have a documented history of achieving what they themselves previously considered impossible. The hologram showed various human athletic achievements: high jumps, marathon runners, mountain climbers. At each point in human history, they believed they had reached the peak of performance, only to surpass it in the next generation. Their capability isn't fixed, it expands to meet challenges. A methane breather raised an appendage. Professor, do humans know how they're perceived by other species? That's the most fascinating part, replied Qulvax. They have absolutely no idea. In their fiction, humans often portray themselves as the underdogs of the universe, physically weaker or technologically inferior to imagined alien species. The concept that they might be considered apex predators would genuinely surprise most humans. The professor manipulated the hologram controls again, showing various human cultural activities: art, music, cooking. And that's the final piece of what makes them so remarkable. Despite their predatory nature, humans create beauty. They make art with no practical purpose. They deliberately combine food substances for pleasure rather than mere nutrition. They organize sounds to evoke emotional responses. Professor Qulvax's skin cycled through a complex pattern that the universal translator interpreted as philosophical amusement. In many ways, humans are walking contradictions: fragile yet resilient, aggressive yet empathetic, practical yet whimsical. Perhaps most importantly, they're relentless pattern recognizers. Given enough time, they'll figure out any system or problem, including eventually us. Professor Qulvax looked at the chronometer on the wall. We have time for a few questions before the end of today's lecture. Yes, Trilly? The bioluminescent student's antennae pulsed anxiously. Professor, given everything you've told us, have you ever worked closely with a human? To study them? A ripple of tension passed through Qulvax's skin. As a matter of fact, I have. And that brings me to my final point about human unpredictability. He pressed a communication device on his lectern. Dr. Mitchell, would you please join us? The door to the lecture hall slid open, and a human walked in. Chaos erupted. Two crystalline students shattered into defensive fragments. The gelatinous collective in the back separated into individual puddles that slid under their seats. The Voltar twins' wings produced a high-pitched whine as they vibrated in alarm. Everyone calm down, boomed Professor Qulvax through the room's amplification system. Dr. Mitchell is my research assistant and has been cleared by university security. The human, a middle-aged male with a slight build and graying hair, waved awkwardly. Hi, everyone. Sorry about the dramatic entrance. Qulvax has a flair for the theatrical. Professor Qulvax's skin flushed a deep orange, the Cephalodian equivalent of embarrassment. Dr. Mitchell has been working with me for 3 Earth years on comparative xenobiology. He's one of only 17 humans cleared for interspatial travel and galactic community interaction. Dr. Mitchell walked to the center of the room, carefully avoiding the still trembling students. I was a xenobiologist on Earth, though obviously with a much smaller sample size to study. When Professor Qulvax's team made official contact with our scientific community, I was offered this position. A brave photosynthetic student raised a frond. Aren't you disturbed by all the different life forms here? The human laughed. Are you kidding? I'm delighted. Earth xenobiologists theorized about the possibilities for centuries, but the reality is so much more diverse and fascinating than we imagined. But we must appear so alien to you, insisted Trilly. Well, yes, admitted Dr. Mitchell. But humans are surprisingly good at adapting to the unfamiliar. Our brains are pattern recognition machines. Once I learned your communication systems and basic biology, the initial shock wore off quickly. He glanced at Qulvax with what appeared to be affection. Besides, after working with this cranky tentacle waver for 3 years, I've learned that different doesn't mean incomprehensible. We've found more similarities than differences. Professor Qulvax's skin rippled with what the class recognized as resignation. Dr. Mitchell insists on using humor to diffuse tension. It's apparently a common human trait. It's called breaking the ice, explained the human. Though I guess for some species here that might be literal. A Gassian being cautiously descended from the ceiling. Dr. Human, aren't you concerned about being surrounded by so many non-humans? First, just Dr. Mitchell is fine. And second, why would I be afraid? Most of you evolved in environments far different from Earth predators. You're not triggering any of my instinctive fear responses. He smiled, showing teeth, a gesture that several students found alarming despite its friendly intent. Besides, according to the professor here, I'm apparently the most terrifying thing in the room. Though I have to say, that's news to me. On Earth, I can barely open stubborn jar lids. This comment elicited nervous laughter from some students. The tension in the room noticeably decreased. Professor Qulvax moved to stand beside his human colleague. This is why I wanted Dr. Mitchell to join us today. Despite everything I've told you about human capabilities, they remain one of the most collegial and collaborative species I've encountered. The professor's skin settled into a calm blue pattern. The point of today's lecture wasn't to make you fear humans, but to help you understand them. Yes, their adaptability and persistence make them formidable, but those same traits make them valuable allies. When humans commit to a cause or relationship, that same relentless quality works in your favor. Dr. Mitchell nodded. We're really not as scary as the professor makes us sound. Most humans just want to explore, learn, and maybe find a decent cup of coffee in this sector of the galaxy. The chronometer chimed, signaling the end of the lecture period. For next class, announced Professor Qulvax, please read chapters 37 through 42 on human social structures and the supplementary material on their communication patterns. Dr. Mitchell will be available during laboratory hours for observational study with his consent, of course. As the students began to file out, some still giving the human a wide berth, Zorn 7 approached Dr. Mitchell cautiously. Query: if your species is so adaptable, why have you not conquered the galaxy already? The human laughed. We're too busy arguing about which Earth restaurant makes the best pizza to organize a galactic conquest. Besides, we've only just figured out how to leave our solar system without blowing ourselves up. Additional query, persisted the mechanical being. Are all humans as benign as you appear? Dr. Mitchell's expression grew more serious. We're as diverse as any species. Some humans are brilliant, some foolish, some kind, some cruel. What unites us is potential. We can become almost anything, given time and motivation. He smiled again. Including, I hope, good galactic neighbors. As the last students departed, Professor Qulvax turned to his human colleague. You always manage to make me seem like I'm exaggerating the threat humans pose. Because you are, replied Dr. Mitchell. You focus on all our scary survival traits without emphasizing that those same qualities let us create symphonies and dedicate our lives to helping others. The professor's skin shifted to a pattern indicating affectionate disagreement. Perhaps. But better they approach humans with caution and discover you're friendly than underestimate you and make a potentially species-ending mistake. Dr. Mitchell shook his head with a smile. You know, on Earth, we used to think we'd be the underdogs of the universe. Turns out we're the thing that goes bump in the galactic night. Indeed, agreed Professor Qulvax, gathering his teaching materials. The most terrifying predators are always the ones that don't realize their own strength. As they exited the lecture hall together, the human turned to his alien colleague. Want to grab lunch? I hear the cafeteria is serving something that's either a delicacy or a cleaning product. I'm game either way. And that, sighed the professor, is precisely why your species terrifies me.